Anyway, back to Laura arriving late to the meeting. How is she going to rectify the situation? Getting back into the good graces of a villainous developer who has it out for her, and the rest of the team who's irritated with her may seem impossible. As soon as she realized that the meeting had been moved and that she was going to be late, Laura began to strategize about how she would win her teammates over. This is the first step in a process called rhetoric. Rhetoric is by far the oldest theory we are looking at today. Well, not quite that old. It has its roots in ancient Greek civilization. The philosopher Aristotle developed a treatise called Rhetoric in the 4th century BC, which became the basics of rhetorical theory. Rhetoric is about persuasion. It has its origins in how people use language to get things done. It is fundamental human communication, and very important for Laura, as she must persuade her team that she is a good team player who can produce results that they need to have a successful project, despite her being late to the meeting. So as I was saying, the first step to being successful in rhetoric is to plan out who you need to speak with and what you need to say. In rhetorical theory, these are known as rhetorical moves. Not those kind of moves. Rhetorical moves are the steps you take to build your argument and then argue it successfully. For that, you need to know who your target audience is and plan out a strategy of what you need to do to communicate with them effectively. In Laura's case, this means that what she needs to do is convince her team that she is on top of her project tasks and is a valuable team player despite being late. As soon as she enters the room, Laura makes a quick apology and explains that her usual road to the office had been rerouted so that she had to figure out a way to get here. In addition, she checked only her calendar and not her email on the way in, so she didn't know that the meeting time had been moved up. These statements use the first type of rhetorical appeal, called logos in fancy Greek terms, or logic in English. Appeals are arguments that sway as to the speaker's point of view. It's hard to argue with someone being late due to road construction they are unaware of and a meeting time they never received. This piece of her argument appeals to the logic of who we hope are logical anyway. Second, she cracks a self-effacing joke about how she really should learn to teleport from San Diego to Seattle so she wouldn't have to deal with those pesky road closures. She's making an emotional or pathos appeal. A pathos appeal is one in which the emotions of those being persuaded are touched. By bringing humor into the situation, she deflates the tension and redirects the energy in the room in a more positive way. Finally, she uses the rhetorical appeal of ethos, which is an appeal based on the character and reputation of the speaker. After using logic to explain her lateness and lightening the mood with a quick joke, she gets right down to business and begins to go through her usability test results. By doing this, she demonstrates that she is serious about this project. Her reputation as a hard worker who delivers results is the argument being put forward by Laura at this point. We haven't talked much about the team's project. They have been tasked with switching over the company's email newsletter over to a blog format to allow the employees more direct access to the blog and also provide them a way to converse more publicly. The latest usability test was to determine if the most recent iteration of their design is well understood by users. In particular, they created a share function that allows readers to share a particular article with another employee. As it turns out, this piece of functionality, while seemingly obvious to the project team who put it together, is not well understood as a function by the users. The task that involves sharing an article were only completed by 2 of the 7 users tested, and the 2 who did complete it took over 3 minutes to even find the button. Semiotic engineering can help us with this situation. What engineering, you say? Semi-what? Yes, it sounds heady and technical and complex, but semiotic engineering really just believes that design is a conversation between the designer and the user. And in this case, the designer's intended use of the shared functionality is not yet understood by users. Semiotic engineering theory is a communication theory. It gives agency back to the designer from the user. As opposed to user-centered design, where the designer designs based on what the user wants, in semiotic engineering, designers are seen as innovators who create functionalities that go beyond what the user asked for. Features that are helpful to the user but aren't things that they would have thought of to request in the product. Huh? Think of Apple's iPhone. Were people clamoring to have a phone on which they could download music, apps like Angry Bird and Pandora, look at maps and get directions, check the weather in stock, surf the web and keep up on Facebook? No. But designers at Apple had these ideas, and they designed the iPhone to do all of these things. Semiotic engineering is what Apple's iPhone team engaged in to communicate all of these cool features, such as the interface of icons that can be tapped, the swiping function that can be used to move through pages in an application, and the pinching and zooming gestures to see more detail with what's on a web page. Now, granted, every time Apple releases a new version of the iPhone, it includes release notes when you download to explain what's new. So that is one way to find out how to use all of these cool features, and that's part of semiotic engineering too. But even if you didn't read the notes, the product has been designed in such a way as to make it intuitive for users to figure out. That's semiotic engineering at its best. No user manual needed. The interface communicates what the designer intended naturally and easily. So back to Laura and her team, sad about the usability results. The design treatment they use for the share functionality clearly isn't being understood by users. They need to work out some additional treatments that more clearly convey that this feature exists on each blog article page and also how it is used. This is a conversational aspect of semiotic engineering. Designers and users are in conversation together. If I don't understand something you've said to me, it is your job to restate it so that I do understand. In this context, user does not understand what the designer is saying, so the feature must be altered to make that intention clear. Semiotic engineering introduces a radical change in design in that it advocates shifting the design goal statement from producing a product based on the user's desires to introducing a product or feature based on the designer's vision. So it looks like it's back to the drawing board for the team on the share functionality. So let's review. Back at home in San Diego, Laura calculated her time in the airport with a coffee stop on the way. Then she flew from San Diego to Seattle for her team meeting and was late arriving from the airport due to road construction. Unbeknownst to her, she arrives 15 minutes late to the meeting because it was changed from 9 a.m. to 8:30, but not through the calendaring system but through email. When she arrives at the meeting, she has to navigate the social dynamics of the villainous developer Eugene, who feels superior not only to her but to everyone. She wins back the respect of her team through her joke-telling, hard work, and reasoning about why she was late. And the team discovers in the review of the usability findings that the share function is not being discovered by users, so they must go back to the drawing board to redesign it and make it easier to discover and use. So we can explain a lot of things about Laura's day through the previously examined theories, but one thing we still don't have a clear picture of is the underlying motivations for Laura's actions that day. This is where our last theory, activity theory, can help. Activity theory is a historical and cultural theory. It looks at behavior while taking into account the influence of culture. It posits that humans are a special type of subject because through evolution they have developed a complex understanding of the world. They have developed tools, cultural norms, and responses to the world that can't be explained purely by logic. People don't act without motives. Motive is the key to activity theory. Culture is embedded in objects, and objects carried forward into activity. Activity theory and DCOG both argue that cognition extends beyond the human mind to include tools, that tools do important work that humans can't do on their own. However, activity theory believes that humans use tools volitionally for a purposeful, intentional activity, while DCOG argues that if cognition can be exhibited by one node, such as a human being, it can be exhibited by another, such as an inanimate object. So what can activity theory tell us about Laura and the things she did today? First, she mapped out a circuitous route to the airport this morning. Why would someone take the back roads to the airport when they need to catch a flight? She was on a single-minded quest for caffeine before she left. Second, on her way to the office from the airport, she turned her car around and started driving the opposite direction from the airport. What was her motivation? The direct road to the office was closed, so she had to turn around and take a different way. Her motivation was to get to the office using a map as a mediating tool to help her because she didn't know a different way to go. Next, she uses her iPhone to track her schedule because she wants to know which meeting she has today. The iPhone is a tool that mediates her schedules, but the motivation behind why she needs to know which meetings are happening when and what the agenda is for each is explained only through activity theory, which examines her motives. Finally, the usability report is an artifact used to capture results from a usability test of several participants in one place. As a tool, it mediates the test by summarizing them so that the entire team has access to what she learned. Why look at the report at all, though? The team wants to make a better product, and that is their motivation for reading the report. If you hadn't noticed yet, we spoke about her motivations all along while discussing the other theories. It's hard to understand how her day comes together as it does, without knowing the motivations behind her actions. Activity theory helps us put Laura's actions and interactions into context. So that's it. That's an overview of our different theories. If you want, you can see more about how theories are used in action on our website.